All right, well, let's get started. Welcome to our functional fitness grow with GoGo class. Oh boy, now my light is really strobing. I'm just going to turn it off or turn it down and see if that helps. No, it's going off. Okay, you might not be able to see it, but I can see it, and I feel like I'll have like I'm having a club experience. Welcome to our functional fitness class here with GoGo. It's part of our free series. In addition to these free classes, with your GoGo membership, you can access other services like rides, meals, groceries, medication delivery, and home services. And you get all of these by calling one phone number, and that number is 855-464-6872. Also, a reminder that you have a referral code at the bottom of your GoGo receipts. So if you go to your GoGo receipt, look at the bottom, there's a code, you give it to a friend. If they use the code and take their first service with GoGo, then you will both get $10 in credit. So a great way to refer to friends if you think GoGo would be beneficial for them. Also, a reminder that we have a Facebook group. So if you ever want to continue any conversations that we have online or just see what other people are up to, you can find us on Facebook. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping. With that, we'll get started. So welcome to our class. I'm Adra. If we haven't met, I teach the yoga and the functional fitness class here at GoGo. For functional fitness, you need a chair. Most of the class is standing for functional fitness. For the yoga class, it's mostly seated. I'll do a little spiel once I stand up, but chair is helpful. And then I have a pair of light weights. So you can grab your light weights. If you don't have light weights, you can always grab cans, water bottles, or nothing at all. A lot of what we do, you can imagine that you're lifting and moving things. And that will give you some resistance as well. So don't feel like you have to have weights. Also, a reminder that this is your time and your practice. So if you ever need to listen to your body, take breaks, you're absolutely welcome to do that. When I see that Esther is saying, oh, I thought this was yoga. So we alternate yoga and functional fitness. And so I believe last week on Wednesday was yoga. So this week on Wednesday is functional fitness. So we swap between the two. You can always join us next time or see how this feels. And if it works for you, awesome. And if it doesn't, skip it and come next week. Before we get going, did I put the, oh, there's the things we need. Great. Does anybody remember the move of the week? Oh boy. I'm looking at my notes and I've been really bad about writing my notes down. Oh, I see Bertha's raising her hand. Good.
Balance. Think about
balance. Oh, good. Yes, that's right. Okay, I see that on there. To work on your balance. Excellent. Very nice. Did you get a chance to try that once or twice in the last few weeks?
Every time I walk, I think about it.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. I'm glad you think about your balance when you're walking. All right. Well, if I'm going to just check the chat one more time, sometimes. Great. Okay. Looks good. Okie dokie. Let's get started. So my screen should be your big screen, but if it is not, check, look at the top right-hand corner of your computer. And that will show you, there are a few options. There's gallery mode and then speaker mode. So if you want to see me nice and big, you pick speaker mode. If you want to see everybody moving with you, pick gallery mode. So you have those options. Also, I want to give a quick spiel. I've done this spiel every session for the last few weeks, but I want to do it again in case some people are missing it. When I teach a move that you cannot do, I will often give you a couple of options, but sometimes it's not enough. And so I want to empower you to have the skills to find other options without me helping you, right? Because I can't give you feedback until the end of class. So you can always stick around till the end of class and I can give you some ideas. But A big one, and we've talked about this every time, and I'm gonna keep using it because I think it's a really good example, is squats can be difficult for some people. And they can be painful. And so if you find that regular squats, squatting down is painful, I want you to think about breaking down that movement in a way that is not painful. So that could be, right, a squat requires that my hips bend, my knees bend, and my ankles have some motion. So you could be deconstructing that squat and just doing a part of it, like hinging at the hips, like a knee bend with your torso vertical, that can feel different, or a shift of your weight forward. So that's how I would adjust, a portion of the squat while I'm still vertical. Another way would be to just make it smaller, right? You can still do that motion, but make it much smaller. But if that's still too much, you get down into a chair, you sit, and you find those same motions. So what were the components of a squat? It was a hip hinge, a knee bend, and some ankle shifting. So you could do marching. You could lean back into your chair and do that same motion. I'll sit sideways so you can see for a second, of squatting, of straightening and bending the leg without load. So I just want you to know that I can't give you 100 options when I'm teaching class, but that you have a lot of options. And so if you go, oh, I can't do that, and this class has a lot of blank, think about how you can break that activity, that movement down just a little bit and see, can I do a part of it? Can I get rid of gravity and sit in my chair and do it? And if you can't figure it out, put it in the chat. I won't be able to look at it then, but I can talk about it at the end of class. So just know that this is for everyone, and I want to make it accessible for everyone, and we will create modifications as we can. All right, with that, let's get started. Let's find a nice tall stance, planting those feet about 4 inches apart. And just let your weight shift a little forward and back. So forward onto the toes, but the heels will stay mostly down, and then back onto the heels. Just letting yourself rock, just sensing, okay, I can shift forward and back. And then finding a nice even weight front to back. So even weight front to back, and allow yourself to sway side to side. And then find even weight front to back, side to side, planting those feet down. Let's inhale, circle the arms out to the side and up towards the ceiling. Exhale, lower those arms back down. A couple more times. Inhale, arms circle out and up. And exhale back down. So continue at your own pace. Don't worry about my speed or anybody else's. And just start to notice how you do this. So just having an awareness of, how do I get my arms up overhead? So if you've been in class with me before, you might think about, okay, Adra talks a lot about that movement of the spine. Is the spine lifting the arms up, or are the arms lifting the arms up? And right now we're just having that awareness. So you don't necessarily need to change anything. You're just noticing, how am I getting my arms up? How am I getting my arms down? Is there any clicking? Am I able to bring those arms straight out to the side, or do they have to come a little forward? There's no right or wrong. We're just noticing, we're having this awareness of, how does my body organize itself as I'm moving these arms? Hopefully we're creating a little bit of heat. Continue to move with your breath a few more times. And then next time your arms are down, go ahead and release, shake it off. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about posture before we get into a little bit more strength and fitness. I want us to notice how our body likes to position itself in general. So just pause and just find your, shake it off and find your usual position. right? We have habitual positions that are shaped by the way we move throughout the day, right? The way we sit in our favorite chair. Do we sit in it the same way all the time? Does that create a bend in our bodies? The way we stand, the way we drive. How is our body shaped by everything that we do? And then just noticing, how do I like to stand? And I want you to notice now where your weight is on your feet when you stand that way. Are you forward? Are you back? Are you even? And again, not thinking right or wrong, where do you like to stand? Notice that. Notice where your pelvis is. Is your pelvis directly over your ankles, or is your pelvis forward? Is your pelvis back? It's hard to tell without a mirror, but see if you can just get a little sense of where do I like to be. I see a lot of this, forward, hanging on those hips, crunching in the low back. That's why we have so many low back issues. So just notice, how do you like to stand? And then we're gonna help ourselves find a little bit of alignment. So I want you to place your hands on your pelvis, and you're going to find your sticky outy bones here on the front of your pelvis. There are these hard bones at the front. So if your belly button is here, they're out to the side. We're not totally out to the side, we're still forward. You might need to push in. So we're finding these sticky outy bones, and then we're gonna find our pubic bone. So these are the bones of our pelvis. So sticky outy bones and pubic bone. And I want to find a place, well, first, notice where they are in relationship to each other. So some of us tend to be in this position, so it's an anterior tilt, a forward tilt, where the pubic bone is back. Some people are in a more tucked position, a posterior tilt, where the pubic bone is ahead of these sticky outy bones. So I want you to first notice, okay, where do you stand? Where does your pelvis live? And then see if you can find neutral, and that is when they're approximately in the same plane. So that's when the pubic bone and these sticky outy bones are in the same plane. So no one is winning the race. The pubic bone's not forward, those sticky outy bones are not forward, they're all in the same plane. So notice how that feels. Take a moment and soften those knees and feel the weight on your feet here when you're softened. I want there to be about 50-50 weight on the feet. If you feel a little better in a different way, play with something else, but about 50-50 on the feet. Keep that pelvis neutral and straighten out those legs. I want those hips approximately over the ankles. And I want you to line up your sternum, that hard bone in the front of the chest, with your pubic bone. What I see a lot is this. Having your chest up like that is not good posture. That's creating a lot of pressure in the spine. So I just want you to let your sternum and your pubic bone be in the same plane. So sticky outy bones, pubic bone, sternum, all in the same plane. Even weight on the feet. Back of the neck is long. Relaxing those arms, take a few deep breaths. So this might feel a little funny. I always recommend that you either snap a picture of yourself if you have someone else who can take it, or look in a mirror and try and find nice vertical alignment. That is the way our body was built to be, is having the gravity forces vertically pressing down onto our body in this vertical alignment. So just sensing that, and then we're gonna let it go and start working out, but coming back to this idea of finding some of these points of alignment as we move. All right, shake it off and let's grab those weights. We're doing some squats. So if squats aren't for you, I gave you lots of variations of what else you can do. If you don't want your weights, you also don't need to use your weights. Hands are by the chest. Let's take those feet about shoulder width or maybe a little bit wider. Toes can point out slightly. I don't want it to be a major turnout though, so just a little turnout if you are choosing to turn out. Hands are by the chest, and then notice, once you grab the weights, have you moved out of that alignment? So this is what I often see. Oh, I'm holding my weights by hanging on my joints and compressing my low back. So bring those hips back. Hold those weights with those core muscles. So you can feel the difference. Let yourself push those hips forward. See how much pressure is in your low back. See how little your abs are working. And then let your hips go back. Hold your weight with your core. Feel the fronts of the abdominals working. Feels a little bit better on the back. All right, let's bend those knees. You decide how low you go and straighten. We inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten. Keep going. Follow your breath. Notice the weight on your feet. Is it even right to left? So we often have one leg we favor. Notice if you're favoring the leg when you're doing these squats. Notice if you're flaring those ribs forward. So we talked about earlier that sternum being in line with that pubic bone, right? We can shift the whole torso and maintain that relationship that the sternum and the pubic bone are in the same plane, even as we move into a different position. Couple more. Okay, and coming up, we're gonna put the weights down just briefly so that we can get those arms moving, but we are gonna grab the weights in about 1 minute. So putting those weights down, we're going to move our arms overhead. So just take a moment, reach those arms overhead. I'm gonna start with elbows bent, reach them up, bring them down. And notice how you do this. So I'm going sideways so you can see, okay, this is how I do it. Is your spine moving? Is it possible for you to keep your spine completely still and for you to move your shoulder blades and your arms? Now, if you're going like, oh my gosh, I can't tell. If you have access to a wall that is not too far away, scoot yourself to the wall. My heels are about 1 inch away from the wall. Let your rib cage rest on the wall. Your head might be off of it depending on the shape of your body right now. But hips are on the wall. Your rib cage is on the wall. And then move your arms. You might find that parts of those points of contact you've made with the wall move away. So that tells us, right? So if you start with your arms down and your ribs are on the wall and your hips are on the wall, if you move your arms up and your ribs come off or your pelvis comes away from the wall, you know that you're moving your arms, not with your arms, but with your spine or your rib cage or your pelvis. So feel free to find a wall if you have that, or just have that in the back of the mind. Maybe you'll try that later today when you can access a wall a little more easily. Is we want to move those arms up and down with the arms, not with the spine or the pelvis, right? There's a difference. Because if I were up here and then I actually align my spine, whoop, my arms are actually only in front of us. So just noticing, okay, where are my arms in relationship to my spine? Now we add weights. If that was really hard without weights, just pretend that you're carrying weights, and that imagination of pushing something should be plenty of work. All right, so elbows are bent, palms are facing forward, feet are planted. We have that nice alignment. So we're thinking about the pubic bone and these stichiati bones being in the same plane, the sternum in the same plane as the pubic bone. The weight's pretty even on the feet, and our hips are over our heels. We straighten the arms up towards the ceiling and bend. Now you see that I don't have full range. My arms don't go all the way up towards the ceiling. They're slightly ahead because of my shoulder flexibility. So you might find that you don't go straight up to the ceiling, and that's okay. I want you to honor where you are in your body. So it's especially hard for that sternum and the ribcage to stay still. So really working on keeping the chest still as you move, or the chest bones still as you move those arms up and down. If you start to get tired, maybe you alternate one arm and then the other. If you have an injury, maybe you're only working one arm, totally fine. Smooth breath, couple more times. Woo. Okay, putting those arms down, take a couple shoulder rolls one way. And shoulder rolls the other way. So now we're going to combine the overhead press with the squat, but I want to give you a little break for the shoulders before we do that. So just know that we're going to combine those two exercises we just did in a minute. But go ahead and put those weights down and we'll give ourselves a stretch. So you'll interlace those fingers behind your back. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. And again, look that there's a difference between me squeezing my shoulder blades together and me moving my spine, right? We're moving the shoulders so that we can open the shoulder muscles and the front of the chest muscles and then reach those knuckles back. Couple deep breaths. Okay, and release, shake out those arms. Let's do another quick shoulder stretch. Let's bring one arm in front of you across the body and then hook the elbow of the other arm around. Look at the top shoulder. Watch that the shoulder's not up towards your ear. Can you let that shoulder drop? And we'll switch, release, other arm crosses in front, hook the elbow, let that shoulder relax. Deep breaths. And release. Okay, let's grab those weights. Let's combine the squat with the overhead press. So feet are shoulder-ish width. You can play with going slightly wider, a little more narrow. Toes can turn out slightly. Let's bring those weights by the shoulders. So what we'll do is we'll straighten everything at the same time and have everything bent at the same time. So let's start with pushing those arms up towards the ceiling when we're standing tall. And then bend the elbows and bend the knees into your squat. We push everything up and then we bend. Let's add some breath. Inhale, push. Exhale, bend. Play with that breath a few times and then we'll switch it. So inhale, push, exhale, bend. It might feel funny. I want to give you some variety here. Next time you're bent, pause. Now we're going to change the breath. So take an inhale at the bottom. Exhale, push. Maybe a little easier. Thinking about all those same alignment markers. Just because we're adding extra movement or two things at once doesn't mean we want to lose our form. If your arms get tired, maybe you just alternate the arms. Maybe you put the weights down. Reaching your arms overhead without weight is plenty of work. Couple more. All right, and let's come up, put those weights down. Whew. Catch your breath, shake out those arms. We're gonna move into some ankle work and some foot work. I'm gonna move behind my chair. You can choose to do that. You can also choose to find a wall or a table, just something that you can hold on to for balance. And if you're especially tall, the chair might feel a little bit low, so that's a nice opportunity to find a table or a wall or a counter. Okay, let's take those feet about 3 to 4 inches apart. See if you can allow your feet to be parallel. So that means all 10 toes are facing one direction. We're going to push the weight into those toes and into the balls of the feet and lift the heels up just an inch. Keep it small for now and back down. So we're going up just an inch and back down. See if you can do this inch heel lift without scrunching your toes. So sometimes what I see is a squeezing or clenching of the toes as the heels lift. See if really the weight can move into the balls of the feet. So those are the pads of the feet, not the toes, but the pads, the front pads, and not go into the toes where the toes will clench. The weight goes into the toes, but can you keep those toes somewhat relaxed? Maybe, maybe not. And then maybe you start to lift a little higher. Let's go maybe 2 inches. Up and down. You can keep holding on. If you want more balance challenge, you can always let go. And we're really trying to find that motion in the ankle that's doing the lifting and the lowering. We can still think about some of those alignment markers. It's harder once we lift up onto our toes because our whole center of gravity changes, but we can still have that awareness of our alignment. A couple more times. All right, heels come down, take a little pause. Place the hands on your chair or on your table or on your wall, and you're gonna walk back, creating an upside down L position. So your torso is parallel to the earth. Your legs are perpendicular to the ground. If you can't straighten your arms all the way, you can always have your torso up higher. If you can't straighten your legs, bend your knees. Or do a combination of both. Couple more breaths. And then lifting the torso up, walking yourself forward, shaking it off. We're gonna do another set of those heel raises. So planting those feet a couple of inches apart, all 10 toes face forward, holding on to your support, lifting and lowering. You decide how high you go. See if it's possible to keep the toes relaxed, even though you're lifting those heels and putting weight forward on the fronts of the feet. If you want more challenge, you can always let go. It's of course harder if you're trying to balance, but try and allow it to be controlled. So whether or not you're holding on, think about your descent as being controlled. You're not just plopping down onto the ground, you're slowly lowering down, tapping the earth and lifting back up. So here's another time that if putting weight on your ankles like this doesn't work, you can sit in your chair and point and flex your toes. You can move through this motion without the entire weight of your body having to be the load for your feet, right? You can make this a no load exercise by sitting and moving through your ankle. Okay, let's go ahead and lower those heels, take a pause, we'll take a stretch. Step your right foot back, 2 feet behind you, approximately 1 to 3, depending on the length of your legs, and bend your front knee. So back leg is straight, front knee is bent, back heel pushes into the ground so we can stretch the back of the leg. Stretch out that calf. You can keep holding on to your chair or the wall or let your arms drop. I've switched chairs today. I usually have a higher chair. And the experience is really different. I highly recommend that you play around with different chairs. It gives you a different experience and it's kind of fun. Different experience of how we move when our environment changes. Let's switch sides. So other foot steps forward, switch legs. So left leg is straight, pressing that left heel down, bend that front knee. And I don't mean switch chairs now, I just mean now and then it's kind of fun if you have several chair options. Maybe next class you try something different. It's always interesting how our environment can shape how we move without us even thinking about it. For example, here for me, since this chair is lower than my usual chairs, I'm leaning more forward, whereas my other chairs are higher, so I can be more upright. Neither is right or wrong, it's just different. All right, and let's step forward. Okay, let's go ahead and grab our weights mindfully. Going into some side lunges. So legs are going to go pretty wide now. So definitely wider than the shoulders. You can play with the angles of the feet. So make sure that the foot angle feels comfortable and safe for you. You can also get rid of your weights if you don't want them. I like the weights up by the chest if we're holding weights. You bend one knee, hips go back, chest still stays somewhat lifted, but you're leaning forward, right? So I'm not straight up and down. I'll give you a side view. So it's like I'm doing a squat, but just on one leg. So one leg's getting a lot of load, the other leg's getting some inner thigh stretch. And then coming up and switch sides. So you bend one knee, hips go back and up. Again, it's up to you how low you go. You can make it really small. Here's another time where we can think about, how might I modify this? How could I change this to work for my body? Let's say knee bends don't work. Can you do hip shifting? Right, little side to side is one of the motions that's happening. Can you hinge with the legs wide? Or can you combine both? Right, so just knowing there are lots of ways we can adjust a motion so that we can get good at a component of it. And until our body is nice and aligned or healed from an injury, we can always do pieces and parts. All right, let's even ourselves out. So we've done the same right to left. Come on up, take those feet together. We're going to keep holding on to one of our weights and put down the other weight. Again, if you don't have weights, totally fine. Since we've done a lot of overhead motion, we're going to keep with that theme because we have some of that motion now in our shoulders. At least our shoulders are a little bit awake. You're going to hold on to your weight between your hands. If you have a can, hold the can between the hands. It just gives us something to hold on to and to be a guide. Now, let's reach those arms up towards the ceiling. And bend the elbows a few inches and just notice where your elbows go. And then straighten. So what I see a lot of is this. I want you to try to bend the elbows forward. Is that possible? Is it possible to frame your face having those elbows forward? And if you go, oh my God, this is impossible with the weights, put the weights down, hold on to something if you have something, or hold on to nothing, and try and bend and straighten those elbows, letting those elbows point forward. Now, if you'd like, you can allow this range of motion to get bigger. Right, so if you feel confident that you can bend the elbows and keep the elbows pointing forward, allow the elbows to bend all the way so that your weight or your item goes behind your head, and then you can straighten. But if your elbows are flaring out to the side, I want you to just practice making these bends really small and framing your face with your upper arms so that your elbows aren't flaring because you're working different muscles. I already know you're probably strong doing this, right? We want to strengthen those parts of the body that are not as strong. So let those elbows point forward. Let it be really challenging. Maybe that means your arms have to be a little more forward because there's some shoulder restriction. That's okay, right? We're finding different sticky spots to work, keeping those elbows pointing forward. Try not to let them flare. A couple more times. All right, and let's put those weights down or put the arms down. And we're going into those side lunges again. So you can grab both of your weights, you can stay with your one. You can put the weights down. I'm just gonna stay with one for ease sake. Let's take those legs out wide. Again, it's up to you how you point your toes, if they're turned forward or slightly out. Play around, find what feels good. We bend one knee, hips go back, chest stays somewhat lifted, and we come up. Down and up, keep going. Noticing the work in the leg, noticing the stretch potentially, noticing what's going on in your mind. All right, even yourself out right to left, and then come back up. I'm gonna put the weight down for a moment so that we can try that arm motion that we did again, but without the weight, just so that we can get really good at this motion. Arms come forward in front of you first. Imagine that you're holding on to a box. And then bend your elbows. Where are your elbows when you do that bend? Do they come out here? Do they go somewhere in between? I want you to see if you can find that motion with the elbows staying close. It's like there's a string between your elbows and they cannot move apart. They are magnets and they want to stay touching. Now lift your arms a little higher. Same thing. Bend and straighten. Are your elbows flaring? If your elbows are flaring, lower down a little bit. Find that really nice motion without letting those elbows flare. Okay, if that feels okay, lift a little higher. If your elbows are flaring, stay low. And find that bend and straighten with those elbows together, right? Or tethered. They're separated, but they're not flaring out to the side. Okay, now, if you want, and if that wasn't enough work, grab your weight. We'll only do about 10. You decide where you go. So maybe you stay here with your arms parallel to the earth. It's not as much of a tricep exercise, but we're really focusing on that elbow position. Or we lift the arms a little higher, and maybe the weight just comes towards your head and back, so it doesn't go behind you. If that feels okay and you're able to do this with your elbows still in that tethered idea or that tethered position, then arms can reach up to the ceiling and you bend and straighten. And this is where you really want to be conscious that those elbows aren't flaring. It's not that there's something wrong with the flaring, but you're already really good at that. And we want to get strong at those things that we're maybe not as good at. We want some nice balanced muscles. Couple more times, smooth breath. Okay, whew. Let's put those weights down. We're gonna work on our balance to finish up. So you can find your chair or your wall or your table, something to hold on to. And we'll start with standing on a tightrope. So let's step the right foot in front of the left so that you're standing on a tightrope. Your feet are pretty close to each other, but they're not touching. You can keep holding on to your support. Or if this feels like you could have a little bit more challenge, maybe you hold on to your support with one finger, or maybe you hover your hands. We're finding that tightrope and then balancing, nice smooth breath. Noticing any habits that you have in your spine or in your torso that make you feel more secure. There are motions that we do that sometimes really help us feel more secure. And so just noticing what might that be for you? Sometimes it's a jaw clench, sometimes it's a butt squeeze, sometimes it's a shoulder lift. So just notice what do you do to make yourself feel secure? And is it necessary? Holding back onto the chair if you've lifted your hands, and we'll switch. So other foot steps in front. We're standing on that balance beam, that tightrope. All 10 toes face forward. Nice. And then it's up to you. Keep holding onto your chair. Maybe you hold on with one finger, maybe you hover your hands, maybe you relax your arms. Smooth breath. All right, hands back to the chair. Feet step next to each other. Now we're gonna stand on one foot. So standing on one foot. If that feels safe. If it does not feel safe to stand on one foot, go back to the tightrope standing. Maybe you're holding on with both hands, maybe with one finger, maybe hovering the hands. Let's switch. So hold on to your support. Switch legs, other leg balances. Holding on, maybe with one finger, maybe with the whole hands, maybe hovering. And let's release. All right, inhale, circle the arms out to the side, planting those feet. Exhale, hands touch. Inhale, arms circle out and up. Exhale, hands touch. Let's do one more. Inhale, arms circle out and up. Exhale, hands to the heart. Give yourself a round of applause. Awesome work, everyone. So great to have you here today. So a reminder, next Wednesday will be yoga. So we alternate. And it would be great to see you. If you have questions, feel free to let me know. Now's your time. And I see Elaine here has a question. I have problems with my left knee, left hip, and scoliosis. So wondering if this is a good class for me. So every session that we have is different, right? I don't do exactly the same thing every week. And sometimes we have themes that go throughout the week and then change for the next month. I recommend a couple of things. You listen to your body. So if it feels good in your body is probably right. It's probably nice. If it's painful, then maybe not the best thing, or maybe you need to think about how you can adjust the way we did it. We did it as I explained, like, okay, you have knee issues. We don't want to do loaded squats and standing. Can you figure it out in seated in a way that you get the motion without the load? And then if you're concerned, I would definitely talk to your doctor, ask your doctor, hey, is it good for me to do a fitness class? It's really hard for me to say, I can't tell you if it's good or bad for you without having a one-on-one session with you and going, oh, these are the exercises I think you should do before you start taking class, or yes, it's perfect for you. So I can't answer that question for you. Do a lot of people here probably have knee problems or hip issue and scoliosis? Yeah, I bet. And for some people, this feels great. And so I think that's where you are in charge of your body. So I know that wasn't a real answer, but it was the best answer I can give. And then Twyla says you might mention so Twyla, that's a special group. We have a test group. So that's what that is. So Fridays is a test group. It's not a regular group. Bertha?
Move of the week.
Oh my God. Thank goodness for you. I just forget every time. Let's think about this. What was a good theme today? You know what I want you to think about? It's not really a move. I want you to pay attention to how you stand throughout the day. So I don't want you to necessarily correct how you stand, but at the beginning of class, we talked about, okay, notice where your weight is on your feet, notice where your sternum is, notice where your pelvis is. I want you to just pause every once in a while and just notice, oh, am I a stand on one hip kind of person? Am I a really bent knee? Am I hunched over? Am I thrusting my ribs? So that'll be fun. Oh, I hope everyone does this. Pay attention to how you stand. And then next time we have this class, so next week is yoga. So the week after, so you have 2 weeks to pay attention to how you stand. I want to know, what are your postures? What are your standing positions that you like to be in? I'll share mine because I've been thinking about this for a long time. I am stand on my left leg, always standing on my left leg. Anytime I check in, I'm standing on my left leg. So I want you to find those positions for yourself. Every time you check in, where are you positioned? That'll be interesting. I hope lots of people, so write that down, how you're standing. Okay, any other questions?
Adra, this is Carol. I loved your phrase sticky outie bone. I wish I had a thought about that when I was teaching.
The sticky outie bones. Yeah, were you a fitness teacher?
No, radiology tech.
There we go. Our ASISs, but
ASIS, we use that for landmark for lumbar spines.
yeah, but sticky outie bone is
That
easier
says
for
it
all of
all.
us to sort of visualize. I'm glad you enjoyed
That
that.
says it all.
Anything else?
Can you splurge and tell me what last week's yoga movement of the week was? I left the class before you announced it last week.
That's because I forgot
Bertha
last
knows.
week as well, and Bertha reminded me. So our move
Good
of the
old
week
Bertha.
yoga was focusing on, we've done this as a move of the week before, how we reach our arms behind us. So just thinking about, okay, can I reach my arm behind me by using just my arm? And as this general theme has been the last month or two, and not the spine. So reaching arms back without moving the spine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for repeating it because I had forgotten.
You should be ashamed of yourself, Bertha. You didn't write it down.
Any other yoga or functional fitness questions? Of course, as usual, if you have GoGo questions, the best thing to do is email GoGo because I usually don't know the answers to those. Go ahead.
When I'm at the sink doing dishes or paying, what kind of threat to good posture might that present?
Sorry.
But I tend to bend forward and bring the weight in front and maybe stress the spine a little more.
Sorry, was the question, what would be good positions to be in?
Now, what might I run into trouble with standing at the sink? Yeah, because
Great.
I have a feeling that my posture deteriorates at the sink.
Yes, and a lot of people's does. And so there are a couple things to think about. So a few things I see a lot at the sink. Let me move close up. Oh boy. Well, glad that didn't get my toes. This is what happens when I use a different chair. I see, so let's say this is the sink counter. I see a lot of this. So leaning on the sink counter and then coming forward, so watching for that. And then yes, I see a lot of hunching. And so instead of hunching this way, is it possible for you to bend the knees a little bit, stick your booty out, hinge from the hips, and then wash? And there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with bending the spine and doing your dishes like that. But what's wrong is if you do it like that all the time, every day. So then that's where you think, okay, can I find that sternum and pubic bone in the same plane, bend my knees, stick my hips back, and wash my dishes this way, right? And it depends on people's height and size. So sometimes it's inevitable that you are going to bend forward and round, but at least having that conscious awareness of it and thinking, okay, how can I tweak this a little? Does that answer your question, sort of?
Yes, and it makes me think of something else. It's unrelated really, but the level of the counter for chopping If it's high, it seems to be harder than if it's lower.
Of course, yeah, because when it's lower, we can put more of a
Okay.
weight into it
Yeah.
versus so much wrist. Elaine's asking, do you need a yoga ball for yoga? No. So for yoga, all we do is, all we need is a chair. So no equipment, just a chair. I do think at one point, I don't know if I'll do this for functional fitness or for yoga, we'll use a towel, but I think everybody owns a towel, so you don't need any special equipment, just a chair and your body. All right, I will let everybody go. So great to have you here. And hopefully I will see you next time.